Hello and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. My name's Katie Stickley. I'm one of the co-founders of Did Teach. And the reason that I started Did Teach was because I wanted to help teachers, really sort of signpost teachers to organisations and individuals who genuinely value the skills that we've built up in the classroom. So before I ran Did Teach, I was a teacher for 19 years. And so it's been great for me to contact organizations on behalf of teachers and find out what they're looking for and speak to individuals like people like Sarah, who is running a very successful tutoring business now and has kindly offered to do this webinar for us tonight. So we can learn a little bit about her journey and the power of tutoring and how you can create a really lovely business, especially with the international market. So it's quite an exciting idea. And when I first spoke to Sarah about it, I just couldn't believe that I hadn't heard much about it before. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Sarah. I can't wait to hear a bit more about your story and about your adventures.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's always lovely to speak to you, Katie. So it's a pleasure. Do you want me to share my... Are you
Shall
happy?
I put it on?
Yes.
Yeah,
Otherwise, Katie, I have a terrible habit of just going off on another tangent and you'll have to sort of pull me back. So at least this keeps me on track. Yes. Okay. So it's lovely to, well, I can't see anybody other than Katie, but it's nice to be able to talk about something that I'm really passionate about. So my name is Sarah and I run an international tutoring business. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how that came about, my journey and what I am running now. So I want to talk about how you can be successful in the tutoring world. I absolutely love teaching. That has not changed in the, I think, Katie, I think you and I taught for the same amount of time. I think you had a year on me maybe, but I've taught for 17 years and have loved it. So this is a little bit of a timeline, so you can see my journey, I guess. So I've taught in a range of different schools. Most recently, I was head of English in a prep school, a boarding school in the north of England. I left in order to set up Aster Tuition, which was and still is a bespoke English tutoring company because English is my passion. And I realised quite quickly that although I absolutely loved tutoring, I found that I was getting all of my work in the evenings and weekends. So whilst I had autonomy over my time, I was tutoring at a time that was kind of inflexible and not particularly sociable. So I realised that I wanted to work in a market which allowed me to work in the daytime. So I started working with a Chinese agent, and that really kind of introduced me to the benefits of working with students in Southeast Asia. And since then, I have developed great links with agents in a whole host of countries. I think at our last count, we have students in 11 countries. I became an accredited member of the Boarding School Association because I wanted to kind of cement my expertise in supporting students coming to the UK. And then things sort of grew relatively swiftly from that point. I was able to recruit freelance tutors across a range of subjects and then develop networks with a number of international agents from Southeast Asia, the Middle East and the UK. And it's been a really, really lucrative and successful business, which has allowed me to begin the process of applying for VAT registration. So in a nutshell, that's my journey. It makes it sound super easy when you look at it like this, doesn't it?
I was just going to say that. What's the reality like, Sarah?
Yeah, not like that. I think if we had another 2 hours, I could have said, and these are all the things that went wrong. I think the reality is what I did in 2 and a bit years had tons of ups and downs. I made lots of mistakes, but I also put a huge amount financially into support to make sure that I was equipped to run a business. We have so many skills, don't we, as teachers, huge amounts of skills, but I had no business acumen. I had no business background. So I invested in business coaching, in marketing support, in sales training, and spent many tens of thousands of pounds, which I absolutely needed to do. And you have to when you invest in your professional development. But there were also things I invested in that didn't work out, that weren't helpful. But I left teaching knowing how to be a teacher, but not knowing how to run a business. And I learnt the hard way and made some, decisions which cost me, but ultimately made me a better business owner. But I definitely, it wasn't as slick as this as this timeline perhaps suggests, is all I will say on that note. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey. And I'm here to kind of talk about Aster Academy, which is the 12-week program that I'm now in week 9 with my first cohort. And the reason it came about was because of these questions that I was being asked repeatedly by teachers and tutors that reached out to me. How did you do it? Is it possible for me to do what you've done? And I really wanted to kind of abolish this, not this myth, but this idea that there was something special about me that other teachers didn't have, and that actually it is a difficult business to get into in many ways. But if you follow certain structures and you go about things a certain way, you can do it. So these are sort of the questions that I suppose I responded to, and then I set up this mentorship program, which I've deliberately developed into 3 distinct categories, and 3 distinct months. So what I've done is I've taken everything I've learned in 2 and a bit years and really kind of distilled it into a 12-week program. And I think you could ask anybody who's on the program right now. I know they'd be happy to sort of share their thoughts, because they're a really wonderful group, and I'm seeing them flourish already way before the final month. But it was very much all of the things that I've done, what's worked, but also fundamentally what hasn't worked, so that they don't make perhaps the costly and time-consuming mistakes that I make. But one of the things that one of the tutors on the program said recently when we did a webinar was that I'm very generous with everything I've learned, and that I open my doors to that world, and I really do. So I share everything: resources, templates, sales expertise, now that I feel that I've kind of grasped how to sell to international agents, contacts, guest experts. So I get everybody in my world to speak to my group. So it's really about welcoming people in and saying, look, this is how I've done it, ask anything. So it really is about empowering people, and giving them everything that I wish I'd had at the beginning, that I didn't have. So these are some of the things that we talk about to help people make this sort of successful transition from teaching to running a tutoring business. And we look at how these pain points that I think it is quite it's a scary thought, isn't it, to move away from something where you know exactly what you're going to take home each month, and you've got that reliable income. So we talk about all of these things and how you can step out of teaching and go it alone, how you can run a business so that your salary is in place and you are not taking a risk, and you're not walking into the unknown, how to sell into different markets. That's definitely my expertise, my niche, is how to sell lessons and workshops and courses into countries like China, because that's out of all the countries I work with, that's where most of my students come from. How to use social media, not just, we all use social media, don't we, whether we like it or not, but it's about how you can use social media to leverage your brand, your business in Southeast Asia in particular, and what those agents look for. And then number 5 is hugely important. One of the things I struggled with leaving a school, was, I had nobody around me, in the sense of, professionals to sort of to support me, or understood, or colleagues, like the whole being in a staff room. I didn't have that. So this is what I've aimed to create through Aster Academy, is a community. So we do have a Facebook group, which just for us, which we share ideas and suggestions, and I encourage them to put questions whenever they can think of something, and I'll do a live every week. And one thing that's worked really, really well on this kind of beta program that I've tweaked as well and made changes to as we've gone, is listening to what they want and giving them that sort of extra. So if they're having a week where they're perhaps struggling to put together a message or an email or a newsletter to an agent in a different country, I've kind of done a video and said, look, this is what's worked for me. This is where I've had a response. So look at doing this. And I've also put on free sessions. So I've done a free sales session because a few of them said, look, I don't really know how to approach this. And we've just introduced accountability partners because I thought that was something that I've learned from my business coach, this idea of having somebody who can check in with you each week, who can keep you focused. And for some of the people on my program who are still working in a school, they're not taking that leap just yet, but they wanted to have the foundations in place. Having a partner to kind of cheer them on, I think, has been really helpful. So these are some of the things that we look at, these ideas of what it takes to create a viable tutoring business. And these are some of the things we talk about initially. So doing your research, following interesting people, not just other teachers or other education professionals, but people who are, who perhaps outside of your world, because that's one of the things I found when I followed people that had nothing to do with education and the opportunities that have come from that. And this idea of earnings for now and future you, I didn't do that when I left teaching. I didn't think about what I wanted to earn, what I needed to earn, and how I'd get there. So that's something that we talk about, this sort of having that financial sense. And then how you can use socials to share your voice and really get yourself out there. And yeah, these are the pain points, I think, that have come up most often. And these are all of the things that we go through in the program. So making sure that every avenue is explored, because fundamentally, I want people to feel empowered and to leave the 12-week program with an idea of a business that they can start or a business that they can improve upon, but with a really clear understanding of what it means to run a successful international tutoring business. So that's pretty much everything in terms of the business. I'm conscious I've just talked at you, Katie, or just talked to you before I talk about.
I was going to say it was quite nice in some respects, because this is the bits that we are not comfortable with as teachers, isn't it? These are the bits that we kind of struggle with. And although we can do them and we do have the skill set for it, sometimes we just need that direction. And so it's nice that you haven't put the idea that it would hold you back, your subject knowledge or anything like that, because we are very good at our subjects. And with that in mind, what kind of subjects does the sort of international market look for? What's is there, is it just science, maths and English, or is it a broad range?
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely not just the core subjects. And certainly if we think about China, for example, because China, Hong Kong, Singapore are probably the biggest part of my market. They are very much looking for subjects outside of those areas. So in the last 2 weeks, I've provided history, geography, and French tutors for Chinese students who are in international schools in China looking to come over to the UK. So they're definitely broadening out and looking for experiences that will really support them in the UK. Most of them, the majority of them, come to boarding schools, and our boarding school system is very much designed to offer a holistic experience to students way beyond English, maths and science. And I think international families and agents are starting to realise that in order to come to this country and thrive, they need to be able to access these other subjects. So I've got students that are asking for Latin support, ancient Greek. So yeah, it's very much perhaps outside of what you would traditionally expect students to be looking for.
Yeah, that's good to know. Thank you.
Oh, that's fine. And I think the other interesting thing as well is we talked about this last week in the program. In terms of the kind of emerging markets, in terms of countries that are looking to, that boarding schools are looking to work with and finding those opportunities. So it isn't just China and Singapore and Hong Kong. It's just that that's my, I suppose that's my niche, that's my biggest market. But I also have students in South Korea, and we talk about that. And I'm starting to get more students coming out of countries like Thailand. So every time that happens, I share that with my program, say, look, this is what's worked. This is what agents have been most interested in. This is what they've been least interested in. So, I wouldn't go down that road, just so that they've got a very clear focus, because I think it can be a massive, if you've never worked in a boarding school, or if you've never dealt with a Chinese agent, a lot of this will seem baffling. So I'm really just trying to kind of deconstruct all of those processes and step by step take people through it, so that by the end of it, they've got a really, a really clear plan and a focus.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I think, if you're setting up as a tutor, I've done tutoring, lots of teachers have, it's not just a word of mouth thing, is it? You're not going to get an agent in China just by chatting to someone at the co-op.
No, sadly not.
So it's interesting, and like you say, that flexibility that you have with that, then in terms of your time during the day, not eating up your evenings and weekends, that's such a valuable offering, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's, that I think that's something everyone I speak to, every tutor who's signed up for the first Aster Academy programme, and those that are coming on for the January start, the majority of them do it because they want those daytime hours. They have children, or they want that flexibility. And I think that's something that, I've really cornered and can help them with. And also, it's, we don't talk about the sales side of things. Sometimes it makes us feel a bit icky. But I've learned a huge amount in 2.5 years of how to, understand your worth. I was a teacher for 16 years, and your prices ought to reflect that. And I think initially I was very scared to kind of say, this is my price, and I'd be there kind of just whispering it. Whereas now this is what I charge. And, that's it pretty much. It's not apologizing for my prices, and we've done a lot of that in the program, getting people to see that actually charging what their experience and their background deserves, I guess. And I think that's why we did an extra session on sales, just to make sure that they were sort of super confident in that area. Okay, so the nitty-gritty is, and there's a lot of writing on here, so I'll try and sort of deconstruct it a little bit. So you can just see down here, it's probably easy to see here. So that the 12-week program is £1,500, and there are still a couple of these deep dive strategy sessions available. So the idea behind that is that I work with tutors for 90 minutes before the program even starts, just to really give them a deep dive and a very, very clear accelerated sort of program of growth. So there's still a couple of those left if people sign up. But what you can pay in installments, and people can contact me about that. That's absolutely no problem. For anyone that does pay in full, they also get a free 1 month's access to the monthly mastery membership hub, which I set up quite recently after speaking to some tutors who wanted that extra business support, that extra kind of expert advice and guidance. But anyone that joins gets these weekly masterclasses that I run every week. And again, I get expert speakers in and people who've worked with me just to share their expertise. We have a private Facebook group where I do weekly lives, and I share everything that I've ever written that people have asked for in terms of writing to agents, agent lists, etc. The peer-to-peer sessions, which are accountability sessions, and then all the resources and templates that you can imagine, every lead magnet that has worked for me, but also I share the ones that haven't worked to kind of talk through why they weren't successful, so that people can really understand that it hasn't all just been plain sailing, because I think that would be disingenuous of me to say that it has. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire thing. And then there's a little QR code. So if people click on that, it will take them to my landing page. Or I think most people have probably got my email address anyway, so they can always contact me there.
Can I ask about, some of the resources that go with your academy? Is this something that people can rebrand with their own sort of logos?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's all there available for them to sort of, not rip off. But
no. Well, I know someone said to me quite recently, when they did a discovery call, and I had to stop doing discovery calls purely because I was just getting too many people wanting them, which is why this is great, because it means I can speak to a sort of a bigger audience. But they said, oh, you know, you're really trusting people and you're really kind of sharing everything. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I feel confident in my business and the connections I have with my agents. And you know, I think as teachers, we are collaborative by nature, aren't we? We share. And I think that's just in our nature to do that. So this is no different for me. And if people are going to kind of invest in me and my program, then I want to give everything back and more besides. And it eliminates the risk in terms of, you know, what they're going to get back. But it also, I think, demonstrates that this is something that is a big market. And whilst it is difficult to sort of set up and get started without the right support, it's an enormous market. And we talk about that as well in the market shares and how many people are coming over to the UK and how many students are looking to come to UK schools, etc., as well as 7+, 11+, and everything in between. I've realised that you didn't ask that, and I've just gone off on a complete tangent. I'm sorry. Yes, basically, yes, they have all the resources and templates, and they can put their own logo on it and adapt it as much as they want.
That's great. And I mean, really useful stuff. One thing that you were saying about, you know, the students coming over to this country, is there a chance to continue tutoring then when they are here too? Do
Absolutely.
you sort of follow that through?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. And in fact, most of the students do, and they will come over sometimes for 7+ or 11+ or 13+ commonly, and then stay through definitely GCSE. And then obviously A level, it kind of shrinks down, but then they're still coming back to me and my business for support, for interviews, for university applications. So it's a really, I mean, I've had one student who's been with me now since I sort of set up Aster Tuition, and it's just lovely. You know, you see them come over to this country, get involved in a British boarding school life and flourish, and I'm still sort of supporting them through GCSEs. So yes, generally speaking, I would say out of, I guess, 95% of students that kind of come over to the UK and we help them with entrance exams stay with us for at least one subject anyway.
Yeah, that's nice. And one thing, sort of, you know, obviously in this country, there's sort of set prices. There's a range, isn't there, of tutor?
Yeah.
I mean, I see it on the job board all the time. You know, some people are sort of paying £25 an hour. Normally it's around sort of £35, £45 an hour. How does that work with the international market then? Are they, if you've got to pay an agent as well, does that come out of the tutoring, or how does it all work?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, and it depends. And we talk about this as well in the program. Have some agencies in some countries like to work on a commission basis. I think we're talking about this week actually. And most of the agents I work with, I give them my hourly rate, and what they charge on top of that is very much sort of down to them. But I have a minimum price. And it doesn't matter where people are from. That's kind of my benchmark. And you know, it's the same with group classes. And I encourage the people on the academy with this, that, you know, your group prices should not be significantly lower than your one-to-one lessons. And you know, I've worked with 2 Chinese agents where we've introduced group classes, because that isn't something that traditionally Chinese parents want. They want one-to-one tuition. So we've worked really hard to kind of show them the value of these very small group lessons. But yeah, we very much look at the kind of mindset and positioning. It is a very lucrative market, and parents who send their children to the UK want the best possible tutors, and they will pay for that. And whilst the agent takes a cut, that doesn't impact on me, because my prices are high enough that actually I'm not having to cut my prices in order to give to the agent. So yes, there's a middleman in most cases, but that hasn't impacted on me on my pricing structures.
Yeah. And I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about the people that have done the program already. And because they said such nice comments when I asked for testimonials, they were so lovely and so passionate about what you've done and what you've given them, and that confidence. Can you just tell me a little bit more about, you know, where was their business before, or where were they as individuals before, and how's that grown?
Yeah, I think so. There are 15 of them, and they're wonderful. You know, and watching how they are sort of changing and growing has been, you know, it really has been a privilege for me over the last 9 weeks. They are a range. I've got some who are working in schools and who did Aster Academy to give them the confidence to be able to kind of set themselves up as tutors. I've got some who have established tutoring businesses and left school 12 months ago, and now are beginning to kind of niche and want this international market. They want the daytime hours. They want to move away from the evening and weekends. And then I've got some that are running tutoring, sort of thriving tutoring businesses already, but they want the international market and they want to sort of move away from the UK market. And then everything in between, basically. And the program is great because it adapts to all of those needs. And I've added bits and pieces in order to make sure that everybody gets everything they want from it. But yeah, the testimonials have been wonderful. And I knew that it was an impactful program because I know where it's got me. And all I've done is shrunk it down to make it a much quicker program, an accelerated program. So I knew it would work, but I don't think I quite anticipated the level of kind of positivity, I guess, that came back from the people that have done it. And you can see that on LinkedIn, and I can share I'm sure they would not mind, because I've done a webinar with 3 of them quite recently, because I think it's so important that people see the impact it has on the people that are doing it. It's all well and good for me to say it's fantastic and it's impactful, but you need to hear it from those people. And that's what the webinar did. And one of them, Liz, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, I said, what was it that got you into Aster Academy? Why did you choose it? And she said, it was you. She said, it was your passion, it was your enthusiasm, and it was your, resounding optimism that it could work for me. And I think that for me said everything. But yeah, everybody that's on it has said some fantastic things that I keep reposting, just because it makes my day. And I can see that when I look at what they're putting on LinkedIn and Instagram. I can see their business growing when they're out visiting schools and making these appointments with heads of admissions and having meetings with agents and taking on international students. This is after 9 weeks. That took me months and months and months to do. So I'm super proud.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And I think that's it, isn't it? Like we said, we have these capabilities as teachers anyway. We know our subject, we know students, we know how to communicate, but actually a bit of shaping and a bit of guidance to run a business and to make that successful business is actually very, very valuable, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
you said, you spent a couple of years, making mistakes, making progress, but also making mistakes. So it's, I think it's really worthwhile. And then that motivation and momentum, like if you can see people that have done it and gone through that process and where they are now, it's very fulfilling, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think it's not about me. This program is not about me, but I don't think I expected to get such a sense of pride. It is like watching my students flourish and go off into the world, and I don't mean that to sound patronizing, because it isn't at all, but it has been every day I'll sort of look on my phone and what they're putting out there, and they'll contact me and say, "Oh, Sarah, I've got this meeting set up, and can we have a quick chat about it?" And it's just it's wonderful. It's wonderful to see, and it is transformational. And I'm not afraid to say that, because I'm witnessing that every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if any of you watching have got any questions, but feel free to post them. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep asking Sarah if that's okay, because I just find this whole world fascinating, and it's I think what it is it's so not removed from where you were before as a teacher. It's exactly the same thing. You write a program that you believe in, that you've researched, that you've dedicated time and energy to, and then you hone that down, don't you, to get students through. And yes, these are adults, but the learning process is still the same, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And everything is, each week is tailored to take them through that process. So I'm not throwing everything on week 1. It's sort of a gradual build up. So when they meet the expert speakers, so we've had a boarding school agent, a branding expert, an international marketer, a head of admissions, they're all coming in at set points to kind of consolidate what we've worked on, and also to kind of propel them forwards and to give them the opportunities to ask questions to people who are out there doing it right now. But yeah, I think it's I love it. I love the whole thing, and I love the international tutoring world, and I love I love how the networking opportunities that come from that are just I think it's exponential, and I love kind of sharing what has worked with the group, and also doing fantastic webinars, obviously like this with you. I've got another webinar with a Russian educational agent on Thursday. And, I never thought I would be doing this 2.5 years ago. So, it really just goes to show.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And I wanted to ask a little bit more about those relationships that they build. Like, but how much time is spent in the background? So obviously you have your set hours tutoring, but once
Yeah.
you've built that relationship with an agent or with a family, is that then kind of, how much time does it take to nourish that, or is it fairly organic?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I mean, I very much nurture the relationships that I have with my Chinese agents, the ones that are based in the UK. So I do go down to London, and I think there's nothing that, you can't beat that face-to-face in-person event. And I was there a couple of weeks ago, and we went out for lunch. We made some plans for next year. We looked at ways we can collaborate further, and we've put something exciting together for next summer. And I think that probably wouldn't have happened in the same way had I not made that effort to, go and meet them in person. So I do look at opportunities to network and to build those contacts. I've been invited on a couple of occasions over to China to kind of network. I've got a terrible fear of flying that I must get over, considering that I'm constantly going back and forwards to Sweden. So there, at some point I will get over that and will go over to China. Which is fantastic. But yes, I think a lot of, 90% of what I do is online, and through Zoom calls, and the webinars I do with agents is online. But I will definitely make the effort to nourish those relationships in person. I think it's really, really valuable. So if there are events at schools or kind of networking events, I will definitely make the effort to go to them. And I think that's only kind of given me more in terms of not just work, but I think it's solidified the relationships that I've had with those key clients.
That's great. And do they, have you seen them move on often, or do they sort of stay at that job? Because I find with when I make sort of connections with HR managers, sometimes they might leave and then they haven't told the new person that I exist, and
Yeah.
you've got to go through that process again. Have you had that, or is it?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've learned from, because I had a fantastic relationship with an agent, and but it was only with them, and then they left, and I realized that I knew nobody else in the company. So I had to almost start from scratch. So now I very much garner support from everybody in the agency, so that I've got a sort of a broad I suppose base within that company. Because that's, if it's a single person agent, which sometimes it is, then there's not much you can do about that if they decide to, part ways, or do something else. But generally speaking, the larger companies, I will sort of cultivate those relationships organically, but with the head of networking or social media, the finance person, whoever that is. But there will be at least 3 people that are sort of key points of contact. And then generally speaking, there is somebody that I will communicate very regularly in terms of organising the tutoring schedules for those students, and giving feedback after sort of lessons, etc. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's something that I learned, is don't just have that one person and then found myself writing things on WeChat and not getting a reply, and then realizing they've left. So yes, that is something very important, actually.
Yeah, brilliant. And how long do your current students have left of the program then?
So we are on week 9 this Thursday, and then we have 3 more weeks left. I'll be so sad, honestly. They're fantastic. I am trying to find other ways. So on that note, because I was like, oh gosh, that's such a great bunch. And several of them have said, I've never been into a boarding school. I've never visited a boarding school. And I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity to take them to a boarding school. So I've actually organised a day in January where we're going to be on site at a boarding school, have a tour of the school, meet the head of admissions, and do some workshops delivered by me. So things that we haven't covered in the programme. But also I'm getting into a boarding school agent and an international marketer, head of admissions, that I've worked with, to come in and deliver those workshops, because it was something that they said they would really value. And I'm very much about, I want to over deliver and give them as much as possible. So yes, I'll say goodbye to them in 3 weeks, but then I get to say hello to them again in January. So it's great.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And
Yeah.
what an opportunity as well. And it's lovely to sort of see how you've kind of grown with this as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just about you've done this and you can tick that box, and so you can show everyone else how to tick that box. You're still kind of learning it and
Oh yeah.
reimagining it. And that's really nice to see, because then you don't get bored, do you?
No, not at all. Oh no, I don't get bored. And I am, I'm not tweaking things for the sake of it. It's very much listening to feedback, looking at what they want, and finding those areas that perhaps we haven't covered to give them a comprehensive overview of everything, and then more besides, and then like I said, over delivering in certain areas by giving them the free sort of sales sessions so that they leave in December with everything they need and more besides.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it sounds absolutely fantastic, and
Oh, thanks, Katie.
I wish them loads of luck the
Thank
last
you.
few weeks. And yeah, I'm sure it's going to be a great opportunity for them to then spread their wings and sort of branch out a bit more into this market and bolster themselves with
Definitely.
these connections that they've been making. So fantastic. And if anyone would like to sign up to the next Aster Academy, where you start in January, is that right?
Yeah, we start. I've just realised that the link is in the QR code, isn't it? But yes, we start on Thursday, the 4th of January at 7 p.m. So yes, there are still some places left if people would like to get in touch with me. It'd be great to have you on board.
And they can very much do this whilst they're teaching as well, can't
Absolutely,
they?
yeah. I've deliberately put it at 7 p.m. so that nobody is sort of left out of this. Because I know that if you're a teacher in school, the likelihood is that you're working in the daytime. So yeah.
Yeah. And if, they have parents' evenings or open evenings or Ofsted, gosh,
Oh.
is everything recorded?
Absolutely, yeah, and actually that's
Yeah,
happened to somebody. So yes, the sessions are all recorded, but on top of that, if people have missed a session, I check in with them anyway, or they let me know beforehand, and I will, go over any questions that they have in the Facebook group, so that they're not missing out, and they're not feeling as if they're left behind if they're not well or they've had to miss a session.
yeah, that's great. And I know it hasn't happened yet because you've had one cohort, but if they needed to pause it for whatever reason, can they pause and join another
Yeah,
Aster
with I
Academy?
mean, yeah, with definitely, as long as they're happy to accept that there's going to be, a certain amount of weeks they would have to wait before they start again. But the
Yes.
whole point is that I want this to be something that is valuable and beneficial, and that they're not put in under any undue stress. So it can be, I aim to be as flexible as possible to support them.
Yeah. And I think that's nice because you have got a small group, haven't you? It's
Yeah.
not like you're having 300 in there
No,
and
gosh, I'd never do that. It needs to be
no.
small enough that I can support them. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Not at
I
all.
think it's really interesting learning about your journey and also about sort of moving forward and creating your own business with confidence. I think that's the key, isn't it? And
Yeah.
we all want that. We've dedicated time to the teaching. What next for us? And this could be a very viable sort of career move for lots of teachers. So yes, do get in contact with Sarah if you want to learn a bit more about the academy, and feel free to contact me if you need to on the Did Teach website. And thank you very much for this evening.
Oh, thanks, Katie. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.